He- Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Desire Factor podcast and also to the YouTube channel. I'm so excited to be here with all of you. And I have an exciting guest, a man that I very much admire, a man that I am very, very grateful for, the wonderful Bill McKenna from Cogno Movement. So, Bill, thank you for being here.
Oh, what a pleasure. Just an honor to be with you and work with you. And absolutely.
So cool. So I've known Bill for several years now. And you reached out to me earlier last year. And it was in a time where I was needing some extra support. And we got to go, went to California and met with you a couple of times. And we worked on a lot of the different blockages in the brain and different things that came up that was tied emotionally for me. And, things that I didn't even think about, like being dropped on my head when I was, 5 years old from my grandfather and, different things. And one of the biggest ones was always having that feeling that I got to get somewhere else. I got to get home. I got to get home. I got to get home. And almost in a panic of, I got to get that place, from an anxious kind of place. And I never understood it until you and I worked together. And there was that moment where I had a memory, which I suppressed. And it was that same weekend that my grandfather dropped me on my head. And we were in Chicago for my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary. And there was, I grew up in Arizona. We didn't have any real storms like they have in the Midwest. And we were in the middle of my dad says it was a hurricane, and it was like just thunder and lightning and just crazy rain. And I remember being in the back seat with my mom, and I was like, I want to go home. And 5 years old. And she's like, I do too. I mean, her little 5-year-old was kind of coming up. So there was no sense of like comfort or compassion or settling down or reassurance. I mean, she was just as scared as I was. And that panicky, I want to go home, kept with me for the rest of until I started working with you. And even on the last day, we stopped and paused and worked on this because I was like, no, I got to get home. I got to get home. And you were like, what is that anxiousness? Let's find that. And that's when that memory popped up for me. And now, honestly, I am more present and I don't feel that anxiousness of I got to get somewhere else. And so I thank you for that.
Oh my gosh.
Deeply.
Oh yeah. I remember that. I remember that part of the session. And I remember how intense that was for you.
Yeah.
Right? It was a real intense desire. And,
yes.
And it wasn't like, I could just talk you out of it. Like, well, there's a good reason why you want to be, is like, no.
Oh, it was emotional. Yeah, it was driven for sure. That was, you weren't talking me out of that until we worked on that. Yeah. So I also want to share something because this is really fascinating too, because I'm very fortunate. I have a lot of amazing people in my life. I know that whatever happens, I have people I can reach out to and call on, and very grateful for the people, the quality of the people that I have attracted in my life. I've always said that my greatest manifestation to date, and I've manifested a lot of different things, is the people and the type of support and like the family and, what I have now in my life, the friends that I have. And you're one of them because it was about 6 weeks ago. It was actually in February. Let's call it February, depending on when someone listens to this. So it was the end of February, and I was just between two events, a Sedona women's retreat and a healing event I was doing in Arizona, and getting ready for this healing event. And my husband calls me and says, Alex needs to be picked up from school because he did a backflip and he doesn't know how to do a backflip. So he landed on the back of his head. And so I said, well, I'm near him. Let me go pick him up right away. And so when I got there, he was in the nurse's office and found out that he had done the backflip. He remembered standing back up, but he didn't remember anything else that happened until he woke up in the nurse's office. And when he woke up in the nurse's office, he was super, super scared. He honestly thought he got kidnapped because he was like, where am I? And his friend had said that he had his mouth open. He was like, just looked stunned and very confused. And his friend took him from the gym class to the next class. He doesn't remember doing that. Brought him then to the nurse's office. He had no recollection of getting to the nurse's office. That's why when he kind of came to, he was like, where am I? I'm in shock. And so I immediately called you, and you immediately started working with him within a couple of days. But it was really interesting. That night, on Friday night, he was very emotional. Really just, it didn't make sense, the kind of emotions that he was having. Like, we were like going, what is going on? And even the next day on that Saturday, because you worked with him on that next Sunday. So it was like 2 days after, but that Saturday, he was so emotional and illogical. And we were like, this is just not him. What is happening? And so I was grateful because he started working with you, doing the cognitive movement training and, looking for those places in the brain. And he also started working with the council. And so it was a really beautiful tandem of your work and then the work that I do with the council. And two different pieces I want to share is that the work that he was doing with you, almost immediately, he started, having his cognitive movement, if you will. He started having his brain function come back. His emotions were settled down. They weren't as like overactive. And in one of those times doing that, and something that he also found with you was able to clear is while working with the council was telling Frederick, my husband, that there were other brain traumas that he had. And he was then able to share those other brain traumas with you during those sessions, because brain traumas such as when he was 6 years old on a what is it called? School trip, he ran into a pole because he was running and some kid was, chasing him. He ran right smack into the pole and it hit his prefrontal cortex, his nose, all that part. They even thought his nose was broken. He also then, about 2 months later, same thing, running, smacks his head, the left side of his head on the side with a tree. And it went right. Mm. And about a year later, we were on a soccer field. He's getting ready to play soccer. And there was a dad that had a softball and he was throwing a softball. There's all these kids, all these small kids playing soccer. And this man is throwing a softball with his kid. And Alex runs out in the field, boom, same thing, hits him on the left side. So I had no idea, because he seemed fine. The swelling goes down. No idea what those kind of traumas did to him and his brain, but it did translate in our family levels of pure frustration. Like, why can't this kid get the timing? Like, we got to leave in 5 minutes and he still is like, do, 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 do. Like, he didn't get the urgency of timing. And like, it was a conversation that would happen in our family. Like, we said 5 minutes, we said 10 minutes, we gave you plenty of time. Why are you still late? Or, as a joke, but it wasn't even a joke, he would forget things to take to school. So I typed up a little, bring your water bottle, your food, and your reading log, and he would still forget it. So as a joke, I bought a big old neon sign on Fridays, because he had to bring his reading log. I would put, remember your reading log, right? And then he'd go, oh yeah, okay. And still sometimes would forget it. Okay. And then he would go back and do something. And then by the time he left, the reading log was still there. So these are, things that are frustrating as a parent trying to parent a child. You read the books, you took the time to read, but if you don't turn in your reading log, you don't get credit. Does that not bother you? It does, but it was, and he was very focused on school and getting good grades and all that. So there were some of these things where we were just like, I don't get it. Where's the disconnect? That has been totally healed now because of the work that he did with you by finding, and the council, by finding those different places where he had those traumas. And one last piece before we get into this, I want to share is that when the council was looking at his brain, right, and they don't really get an opportunity to hold a brain in their hand, right, to hold a head like that, they started looking at, hey, there's some mechanism here where there's pleasure centers, and there's also push against pain centers or avoid pain centers, right? Parts of the different brain. And they started reactivating that within him, and things started shifting too. And so because of him, and I know a lot of my clients are very grateful for Alex because of that, the council was able to say, hey, let's do this with other people. Let's reactivate the pleasure centers in the brain, because it's like a teeter-totter. When you activate that, you deactivate, let me, resist, let me push against, let me avoid centers of the brain. So all of this, as it looked like a trauma or a tragedy, or, something that was definitely contrasting, it really ended up being a wonderful thing, because it showcased your work and it helped him heal things that were not even aware of. And it's also helped the council reactivate the pleasure centers in the brain. So I just want to thank you, because, I know that he wouldn't be where he is today if he didn't get the help from you. So thank you, Bill.
Oh my God. Wow. You know what? I got to tell you, it was such a pleasure to work with him. He's such a good boy.
Thank you.
Oh, he's only what? How
13. He's turning 14
years old.
Yeah.
13 years old. And he's an active little guy. He's a go-getter. And of course, being an active little boy, you bang it up.
Yeah.
But it's kind of an amazing thing that as a parent, we think that these things about our child are behavioral. They have a problem listening to us. They have a problem behaving. They have a problem obsessing on a particular thing. I want it. I want that ice cream cone, and it's got to be that particular type of ice cream cone, and it's like nothing else will do, right? These type of things, sadness, a fear, like unrealistic kind of fears, inability to focus. All of these things are part and parcel of having a head injury. Now, for most of us, I'll use myself an example. Alex, in a way, reminds me of myself. It's probably why we get along, and I was skateboards and bicycles and that continued right up into adulthood, martial arts. I got kicked in the head, punched in the head, wrestling, football, banging my head, and with the helmet. And, it's a macho thing, right? Because as a boy, there's, for the women here, men that are listening to me may identify with this, but as men, if you're a hard sticker, like if you can hit somebody really hard in football, you're like, yeah, that guy can hit. And you get little dents on your helmet, and it's like a badge of honor. It's like, it creates this ring on your helmet. Like, he stuck so hard, he bent the plastic that's super hard on that, or they get gouges in their helmet. And you're like, yeah, I'm tough or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you want to be the strongest, toughest one out there, but I'll tell you what, you don't realize what that's actually doing. And when it happens, the kid gets a headache, and they feel a little fuzzy, and they get a headache. And then they're like, I'm fine, I'll drink a glass of water and I'm back in business, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know that what I was doing was brain damage. Actual, with all of those hits, they say an untreated concussion is an untreated concussion. And the concussion relates to so many aspects of life. Like, for example, I had irritable bowel syndrome since I was 8 years old. And I didn't know that that was related. You don't know that other injuries are also related. For example, when Alex started running into trees, right?
Yeah.
Right? Well, here's what happens. If you've got a lot of shoulder injuries, right? Or, that sort of thing, right? Knee
Yeah.
injuries, you know, um, what happens is you lose your periphery vision, you lose a certain amount of it and a certain amount of balance. There's literally places in your vision that you don't see. And so hence, you're the one who gets in the accident.
Yeah.
And literally with cogno movement, when we do a survey, for example, since we're talking about Alex, there's literally, you'll move the ball, we use things for the focus on so that we can see where is your vision and where is it not. And I know what the audience is thinking right now. What do you mean their vision? Well, something really super basic. Your eyeballs, your brain, and your spinal cord are one neurological system. It's one. So as I have a problem in my brain, I can actually see it in a person's eyes. They will lose the ability of peripheral vision. They will have certain areas the eyes won't move. Their vision will literally shut down where they won't move the eyes much left and much right, or they'll only look in certain directions. They'll tell their stories and they always look to the right or always to the left, or something like that. Oftentimes looking up can be extraordinarily difficult. If you have them look up, they'll start blinking and they're like, it hurts. So but those are the physical manifestation that we can see in the eyes. There's much more, but the important thing I think to realize is that when we as parents have a child or ourselves, if you look at yourself, right? Because you can look at your own life, and we might look at it and we might say to ourselves, I've never had a brain injury. I've never had one, right? And you know what? Here's the funny thing. Dr. Daniel Amen, who's done brain scans, right? 180,000 brain scans. Amazing man. He's a psychologist that was the very first person. And what he said is we are the only doctor that doesn't look at the organ that they treat. So he started scanning the physical brain and started to see all kinds of amazing things. When you have OCD, your brain will look like Swiss cheese. When you have, this, it'll be the right part of the brain has damage. Over here, it'll be left part. So all of these different conditions. But he says, what Dr. Daniel Amen says, and this is proved out to be true with cogno movement as well. When somebody said, you ask them, have you ever had a concussion? The answer always comes back, no.
No. Yeah.
And, have you ever had a brain injury? No. And I answered it here. I'll tell on myself because I answered it the same way. I had 35 years in martial arts of every kind. I had bicycling accidents. I broke my neck bicycling. I fell on my head and broke my neck. I had a skydiving accident where I was out for, I don't know how long. I mean, I was a mile away and somebody found me basically dying on the ground.
Wow.
A mile away from the airport. So anyway, these brain injuries, they happen through, these obviously physical impact. But one of the great things to understand is that a brain injury that we get playing football can look identical to some sort of abuse. if you had a tremendous abuse growing up, like, for example, a father that beat you, a mother that abandoned you,
so it's not just physical abuse, it could be emotional and even mental abuse.
It will look the same. It will look exactly the same on the brain scans.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
But we look at people, and you probably are going to look at people around you and identify this, but you might find that there's certain people that are just chronically down, right? You know what? You're trying to bring them up. Maybe they're a family member, and you're like, damn, let's try to get them up, make them happy. Well, the problem is that it's not really a choice. It's a physical condition where part of the brain's not active.
Well, so I remember sitting with you, and for the first time ever in my life, I was able to have true compassion for my mom and my dad, because when I was 1 year old, my mom had a huge grapefruit size brain tumor at the back of her head. And she had to get 2 of her bones removed. And she's lucky to be alive still today. But they were afraid, because it was on her ocular nerve, that she was going to lose her sight. And she sees perfectly. And I've never known my mom other than the way I know her. She doesn't have the ability to see past herself. And she doesn't have the ability to regulate her emotions. And she goes from, zero, like she goes into Chicken Little, sky is falling, panic. And that, as you were saying, is a result because you're not getting that brain function. You're not having the energy moving in the right direction because there is a block. And then we were talking about it, and I'm like, well, then what's my dad's excuse? My dad also played football. He almost, his story is Uncle Sam, gave him a scholarship, and because he had 6 scholarships to play football in college, and he was like a superstar, high school football player and all that. And then he got recruited, as he would say, he got drafted, and had some different traumas when he was in the war and things like that. But it's the same thing. It's like the blocks in the brain make sense, and the behaviors now from either one or both of them, it makes a lot of sense. The activity of the brain does not have that flow. So there's not that normal it's like if something happened, he's like, oh my God, I'm screwed. He goes from, we're all going to die, right? It's like, there's no solution to this. And he can't find a solution, even though things for 91 years of his life have always turned out and there always was a solution. He still thinks that this is going to be the thing that he's going to be screwed. His life will be over, or everybody else's will too. And knowing this and having this conversation with you has allowed me to have a new level of compassion for them, because I just couldn't understand before. And so just even like you're saying, having awareness that this could be a result of someone not having that movement in the brain, that energetic flow in the brain, because there was some type of trauma.
You're absolutely right. It's not their fault, and they're trying. They don't want to feel that way. When we say that energetic flow, the aha moment, I can still remember it like it was yesterday. But there is the energy comes up the spine, and there's like a gateway, right? And a gate in the back of the head, right there at the top of the spine, where this gate of is this okay, or am I going to get hurt? Am I in danger? And if it can't get past this gate, right, I say, oh, danger. The information or energy is back here. And if we don't have that type of problem, shall we say, injury, the information can flow up through our system up here to the front. Now, this area up here, love, compassion, higher thought, executive thought, can I get the information up to the executive part? and past the reptilian type fears, like animalistic fears.
Yeah.
So this is a really common problem, and the great news is that there is something that we can do about it.
Exactly.
And it's physical, right?
Yes.
You work with the counsel or work with cognitive movement or the combination of the two, and bring it together and get your full functionality and a full life back.
Yeah.
There's some really super simple things that one could really immediately begin with. I love to give you something that, how can I make my life better today? And for everybody out there, when you have a brain injury, there's going to be a place in your vision that you don't want to look. And what do I mean by that? I mean that, let's say you look to the left, hard left, as far as you can, or far right, or up, or slightly to the right side and up, slightly to the left side and up. There's going to be probably a place that you're like, oh, that's uncomfortable, or I can't actually even see.
Mm-hmm. Or it feels very limiting to how far, like I know that now my periphery up and around, since working with you, is I can see so much wider, which, think about perspective, right? You got tunnel vision or you got total vision. Just even that perspective, right? That's opened up for me, but it was very limited. Even in looking up, it was like my eyes would almost water and they would bounce, and it was uncomfortable to do that. And now I don't have that uncomfortableness.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so what's going on is that part of the brain, because remember earlier on, we talked eyes and brain and spinal cord are one system. So wherever that little problem was, everywhere I look is a different part of the brain. So her brain got active in that place where it was not before.
Yeah.
And when that happens, ideas, inspiration, all higher thought, full brain activity. You had mentioned stuff about your son and the level of interaction with your husband and with you, and compassion and love and these other things. And you had mentioned about that. I don't know if you're comfortable sharing about how that went.
Oh yeah, no. So his relationship with his dad has improved quite a bit, because there's not that Alex, let's go. Sometimes it felt like Alvin and the Chipmunks. Alvin,
Yeah.
And it's just like there's a lot more peace in our house. Maxim and I really never have argued with my kids in a sense. I mean, there's obviously, things that have frustrated me and things like that. But there were times when they would go, just head to head, and, back and forth and back and forth. And it would get Frederick so frustrated that I would take Max and the dog and we would go for a walk. I'm like, let them work their stuff out. Let's leave the house because it's too uncomfortable, or let's go to another room in the house, or let's go to the other side of the house. Let them be in the energy that they're in, and, figure it out. And we haven't had that since his accident happened, because I don't have to leave with Max and the dog and go for a walk anymore. It's I want to, not because I'm uncomfortable or Max is uncomfortable, because there's not that level of headbutting as there was before. It's amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
so it's great. So, I mean, I want to highly, like, if any of you are resonating with this information, I really want you to reach out to Bill. And I know that you also have a program coming up with the Shift Network that we're going to talk about. So I'd love for you to talk about how people can get in touch with you, and how they can learn more about this, because it's really fascinating once you start understanding how, I mean, the brain is the computer, right? And if it's kind of has a virus, or if it's blocked in some way, or, then we're not going to be able to access everything that's on the computer. And when you open it up though, and you have that more activation, then of course things make sense. And I know sometimes clients will say, oh, I feel blocked, or I feel like there's this obstacle, or I feel like I'm sabotaging. This is part of when you see a different perspective, you see past the obstacles, you see past the limitations, you see past the, I feel stuckness. And so go ahead and tell everybody what you're doing with the Shift Network and how also people can get in touch with you.
Okay. Well, really cool. We have an upcoming program which on the Shift Network. Now, the Shift Network is famous for offering like these intensive, like 7-week programs. You get a class every week, but they do volume, right? So the price is ridiculously low because they have hundreds and hundreds of people that join. That's kind of they have a formula to it, if you will. This particular class, we are including our basic training with it, which is the package, which includes the device we use, a Cogno Movement Ball. It gets shipped to you globally.
That's amazing. That's a great tool.
Yeah, and this is this. I think the price of the class is for 7 weeks is the same as what you'd pay for basic training. So anyway, it's this particular class is we go through and we clear out like all of your shame. And what we do is we utilize Cogno Movement to actually reprogram your subconscious. So you're absent your shame, you're absent the guilt, the grief, the resentment, the blame, the fear. We utilize the template of Dr. David Hawkins and the levels of consciousness, and we go through and process all of those fears of your lifetime, all the griefs of your lifetime. And there's basically 7 classes plus homework, that's video homework. And you get the basic training so you can do it on your own afterwards. So it's a great program, super economical. That it's not going to happen until June of 2023, but I think you can start getting your tickets in May of 2023. That's when they'll go on sale finally, and it'll be a lot of fun. Most of all, it's quite transformative. You can imagine what it might be like being absent those feelings. We're going at it from a completely opposite angle. And we're going at all of this through the physical nervous system and the brain. So this is a very physical approach to it. And,
yes. So can I say, I want to just say something really quick too, because I want to be realistic in expectations too. It means the fears that have been stuck. It means the guilt that has been stuck. It means the shame that has been stuck. Like those type of set points cleared. Now, it doesn't mean that you're never going to feel guilt or shame or fear. These are emotions that we are wired to feel, that when something happens, there's a whoosh of emotion. But when you're cleared of it, you can master your energy very much easier because you don't have it stuck. And it's not like, pounding on or igniting years and years and years. And something that you feel like, I just can't seem to, get past this fear. Or I can't seem to get past this shame. So, it doesn't mean that you're never going to get angry again, right? But it does let go of all of this stuck energy or the set point of energy, so that when you do find someone that angers you, you're not as angered and you're able to process it and really be able to work with the energy of it, get informed by it, because that's what we need to do. It's not like, okay, forevermore, I'm never going to be angry, or I'm never going to feel the sense of, disappointment or anything like that. Yes, you will, but you'll be able to process it easier. And it's not igniting all of the decades of stuff that had been piling up. So it's getting rid of the stuff that's no longer useful, so you can be more present so you could actually feel yourself, because when you feel yourself, then you know what you're radiating, what you're vibrating, and then what you're attracting. So I just wanted to say that because that's important. So
Yeah,
we're going to put the links under everything. But if someone is like, but I want to work with Bill directly, I want to do this now, I don't want to wait, and I don't want to do it in a group, because some people are like me, I'd rather do one-on-one stuff than do it in a group. Some people are like, I like group settings. Everybody's different, right? So we'll put your contact information as well, because like you and I work together, you do private, you do in live retreats, you do private ones, things like that. So you have a whole, I like to say, menu, right? You have a whole menu of options for anybody that would like to work deeper in this way.
Yeah, we have training programs, we have practitioners, we have there's my business partner Liz Larson, myself. There's so many options for you. Everything from do it yourself to get help, and yeah.
Beautiful. So any last thing you want to say about your work, Cogno Movement, about the brain, anything that you want to have everybody that's listening or watching take away with them today?
So what I think the number one thing is, number one, that this is a perfect dovetailing. The work that Christy does with energy, and that perfectly dovetails into an area that we don't address. And on our end of things, what we address is actually through the physical body, we can find the neurological issue, and we use the same tool, kind of like homeopathy, right? Which is we use the neurology to correct the neurology. Mm-hmm. So we do all kinds of physical movements while you're focused on your particular thing that's come up, and you'll find a whole different life experience. If you don't know why have I been in a bad mood for the past 40 years? Why is it that I keep the continuing cycle of whatever? Or maybe one of the things that you kind of heard in this interview, and you're like, boy, that sounds familiar, contact us and we'll see if we can be of service.
Beautiful. Well, Bill, I want to thank you for the light that you bring into the world. You're an incredible human being, and I'm so grateful that you are in my life. And I honestly am just so grateful that I had you to call and say, hey, Alex got a concussion. What can we do? And you were right there to show up and help my baby boy and, get him to return back to the place that I haven't even known him to be in since he ran into that first pole. And it was interesting because even when he would play soccer or when he'd play football, he would continue to injure himself. It wasn't brain, but he would injure his knee, or he would injure his foot, or he would twist his ankle. And he would always say, why do I keep hurting myself? And since that, he doesn't hurt himself anymore. So thank you for that. That's the biggest thing, is that he is able to play and not get hurt because he's fully there. So I appreciate you.
Love it.
Thank you. And thanks, everybody. Go below the video and you'll see all the information for Bill, how to get in contact with them. And thank you so much for being part of this community. I appreciate all of your willingness to heal yourself, which, as the council says, healing yourself is moving from one vibration to another. And, we live in a time right now where we have so many different ways to help us and the support to help heal us. And I'm just so grateful for Bill and Liz Larson and Cogno Movement and all that you're doing to help people. Thank you, Bill. Thanks, everyone. Have an amazing week.